Hello and welcome back to my channel What If Deku 2.0. Join us as we delve into the realms of fanfiction and fantasy, bringing you the best stories and discussions. Today, we're kicking off part 3 of our series, What If Deku Received One for All and Had Harem? If you enjoy this video, please give it a like and subscribe for more content in the future. The author of this story is JTZ29 from FanfictionNet. All the relevant links are in the description. Feel free to say hello to the author on their profile. Now, let's dive into the fanfic. Who can find the mistake in the following English sentence? Present Mike asked the class as he picked up a piece of chalk and quickly jotted down an English phrase on the board. After a few moments of receiving no response from any of the students, Present Mike whipped around and slammed his hands on the podium. Come on everybody, get your hands up. Show me some spirit. Ochako and the others have been weirdly distant all day, Izuku thought, glancing at Ochako and the other girls out of the corner of his eye. Ochako in particular looked bored beyond belief, but was she still paying attention to Present Mike's lesson? It's not like they're avoiding me, but we haven't been talking like we used to. I guess I'll try saying something to them after classes today. Turning his head back toward the chalkboard, Izuku rested his head on his hand and studied the English sentence. If I remember correctly, the relative conjunction is in the wrong place. Man, I wasn't expecting us to have normal classes like math and English. But the lunch we had earlier was great. We got high-quality food dirt cheap made by the cook hero. Lunch rush. Suddenly, Izuku glanced at the clock and began to rapidly tap his foot in anticipation. He had studied the class schedule the previous night, and he knew what class was coming after their English lesson. It's almost time. We're about to start our hero basic training. I have. A booming voice shouted from outside the door to the classroom. Izuku's eyes lit up, instantly recognizing who was about to enter the room. With boisterous laughter, the door was flung open and All Might stepped into the classroom. Entered the room like a normal person. Wow, it's really All Might. I can't believe he's going to teach us. An invisible girl named Toru Hagakure exclaimed as she clapped, what can be assumed as her hands together. And that's his Silver Age costume too, so cool. Hero basic training, All Might said, standing at the front of the class and flexing his muscles in an overly dramatic manner. The class that will put you through all sorts of special training to mold you into exceptional heroes. Crouching down a bit, All Might flashed his massive biceps. But before we get to that, I have to introduce you all to a new member of our faculty that will be joining us today. She'll be assisting me with your hero training. All right, you may come in now. I wonder who it could. Izuku was instantly pulled from his thoughts when the door to the classroom opened once again and in walked someone he was absolutely not expecting. There's no way this is happening. How you doing, brats? Rumi Uzujama exclaimed with a large, toothy grin as she stood next to All Might at the front of the class, resting her hands on her hips. Scanning the classroom, Rumi's grin widened when she spotted Izuku staring at her in shock. I hope you're ready to work hard because I'm going to train you all into the dirt. What the hell is Rumi doing here? Izuku thought as he felt his entire body stiffen slightly, locking eyes with the rabbit hero. Seeing a sadistic smirk form on Rumi's face, Izuku felt a chill run down his spine. Oh God, what is she planning? For those of you who don't know me, I'm the rabbit hero, Mirko. But while we're in school you'll call me Uzujama-sensei, Rumi said, tearing her eyes away from Izuku and gazing at the rest of the class, getting shocked stares from most of the students. I've volunteered to help erase her head and All Might with all of your combat-related training. With a devious grin, Rumi used her muscular leg to kick the air, sending out a small shockwave that hit the students at the front of the classroom. Because kicking ass is my specialty. That was a great introduction, Uzujama, and I like your enthusiasm. But maybe ease up on the cussing? All Might suggested as he subtly gestured toward the surprised looks on most of the students' faces. Rumi's face immediately flushed red in embarrassment as she lowered her leg and muttered a quick apology. Getting back on track, I hope you all welcome Usajima-sensei with open arms. As she mentioned, Usajima-sensei will be assisting with any combat-related training. This means today we'll be conducting our first battle training. A buzz of excitement filled the classroom as the students began to mutter amongst themselves. And for that, you'll need... With his signature smile, All Might pulled out a small remote and pressed its singular red button. Instantly, at the back of the classroom, rows of shelves emerged from the wall, containing dozens of numbered metallic boxes. In those containers, you'll find the costumes that you designed when you filled out your special request forms. Costumes! The entire class exclaimed in excitement, most of the students bolting up out of their seats. Yeah. Our costumes. Izuku muttered to himself as he followed the rest of the class toward the back of the room. Quickly finding his own costume, Izuku smiled and hugged the package against his chest. This still feels like a dream. Glancing at the rest of his classmates, Izuku watched as they all grabbed their own costumes. I wonder how everyone's designs came out. After you get changed, come out in ranking order to Training Ground Beta, All Might instructed, before clasping his hands behind his back and heading toward the door. Follow me, Usajima-sensei. We'll meet the students there. Right behind you, boss, Rumi said as she gave a mock salute and trailed behind All Might. However, Rumi briefly stopped in the classroom doorway and gazed back at Izuku one final time. Seeing the green-haired boy start to pull out his costume, a sly smirk spread across Rumi's face as she exited the room. Well, Izuku, let's see what you can really do. 15 minutes later, Training Ground Beta. Looking good is important, ladies and gentlemen. A hero needs to be presentable, All Might exclaimed, resting his fists on his hips and laughing boisterously. With his signature smile plastered on his face, All Might watched Class 1A's students begin to trickle out of the tunnel in front of him. Look alive now, because from today on, you're all heroes. The first student to emerge from the tunnel was Izuku, causing All Might to feel a rush of pride as he watched his protege lead the pack. Izuku's hero costume was a green full-body jumpsuit with a red belt, elbow pads, knee pads, and gloves, along with his normal red boots. He also wore a mask with long ear-like protrusions that resembled All Might's own haircut, and a respirator with a makeshift smile on it that also reflected that of said hero. Following right behind Izuku was Katsuki Bakugo, an annoyed scowl on his face. His hero costume was composed of a tight, black, sleeveless tank top with an orange X across the middle, forming a V-neck. There were 2 dots along the left line of his collar, indicating the support company that designed his costume. His costume also had a metallic neck brace worn with rectangular ends that had 3 holes on each side. His sleeves reached from within his large grenade-like gauntlets to his biceps. His belt, which also carried grenades, held up his baggy pants with knee guards, below which he sported black, knee-high combat boots with orange soles and eyelets. His mask was jagged and black, and as it went around his eyes, a large, orange-rimmed flare shape protruded from each side. Sprinting up from behind, Ochako caught up with Izuku and playfully smacked him on the back. Ochako's hero costume consisted of a skin-tight black full bodysuit with a pale pink design down the middle of her torso, 2 black circles on her chest, and a black rectangle below her waist, running between her legs. There were 2 more pink patches over her shoulders, both cut off by darker pink armbands that matched the thick choker around her neck. She also sported circular wrist guards, a dark pink handle on the back of each one, wide knee-high boots with magenta soles, and a 2-piece belt around her waist with a circular piece embedded into the center where the pieces joined up. Right behind Ochako was Mina, a cheerful smile plastered on her face as she pressed herself closer to Izuku. Her hero costume consisted of a plain white mask over her eyes, with a purple and turquoise skin-tight bodysuit coming together in a camouflage pattern, ending just above her bosoms. Over this, she wore a cropped, sleeveless, tan-colored waistcoat with white fur along its collar, which she left unbuttoned. She wore custom-made plum violet and beige acid-proof boots with holes in the soles, allowing her to secrete acid from her feet to skate around. Next up was Kyoka, who looked like she wanted to join Mina, but was too embarrassed to be so openly clingy with Izuku. Her hero costume was quite simple, sporting a black leather jacket, long salmon-colored shirt with several rips at the collar and hem, black pants, and boots with stereos apparently built into their shafts. She also had 2 small, triangular red paint marks just below her eyes, a plain black choker, and white fingerless gloves. Trailing slightly behind the rest of the group were Momo and Tsuyu. Momo's hero costume consisted of a high-collared, sleeveless crimson leotard with silver lines at her waist and around her arms, which was open to expose her skin from her neck to just below her navel. She sported calf-length red boots with heels, which dipped sharply down in the center, and 2 gold utility belts around her waist, another, thinner one around the top portion of her chest, below her shoulders. Tsuyu, on the other hand, wore a costume that sported a bright green turtleneck bodysuit, tan-colored gloves with large buckles on each wrist guard, and 2 matching belts, one above her bosoms, a strap at either side going around her shoulders, and one around her waist, little green dots embedded into it all the way around. 2 black lines run all the way down her suit, each framed with yellow, and she wore tight black boots with markings in the shape of a V on her thighs, green webbed flippers resembling frogs' toes on her feet. She also wore a headband with a color matching that of her gloves, and goggles with dark green tinted lenses attached on either side. "Damn, you all look great in your costumes," Rumi said as he let out a low whistle, examining all of the students' unique outfit designs. "I remember how excited I was when I put on my first costume. Finally made me feel like I was a real hero." "I must agree with you, Yuzajama-sensei," All Might proclaimed before he threw his head back and let out a hearty laugh. "Now, my young wards, shall we begin? It's time for your battle training." "Ah, I really like your costume, Deku," Ochako said with a cheerful smile, poking at the ear-like protrusions on the green-haired boy's mask. "It's really cool and practical. You're also not even trying to hide the All Might influence," Kyoka said as she covered her mouth to suppress a giggle, gesturing to Izuku's respirator, which mimicked All Might's signature smile. "I gotta admire your dedication." "Well, my mom bought this jumpsuit for me as a gift for getting into UA University," Izuku explained, staring down at his gloved hands and clenching his fists. "It represents her love for me, and I wanted to incorporate it into my costume." All the girls who had feelings for Izuku awed in unison, clutching a hand over their hearts. "But that's enough about my costume, you all." Izuku's eyes slowly widened as he drank in each of the girls' costumes, his face slowly flushing red. Despite how innocent he acted, Izuku was still an 18-year-old boy, and being surrounded by beautiful girls all the time definitely left him with some powerful urges. All of their skin-tight costumes certainly weren't helping with those urges either. "Why, you all look great." Thank you," each of the girls muttered simultaneously as their faces burned bright red in a mixture of joy and embarrassment. "What's up with you, man?" a short boy named Minoru Minta asked, his eyes narrowing as he gazed at Izuku suspiciously. "Why are most of the girls in our class going gaga over you?" What? And no, it's not, I don't know." Izuku began to sputter and rant nervously as he frantically waved his arm around. Seeing that Minta wasn't buying his incoherent rambling, Izuku took a deep breath to calm himself. "Look, we've all known each other for we're close friends." "Uh-huh," Minta muttered as he crossed his arms over his chest, still not buying Izuku's excuse. "Whatever you say, man, but I'm keeping my eye on you." What a weird guy, Izuku thought, watching as Minta walked away and joined a conversation with several of his other male classmates. It didn't take Izuku long to deduce what the group was discussing, as they blatantly ogled the girls and their form-fitting costumes. Izuku couldn't help but feel a twinge of jealousy when he saw Mainta and another student named Denki Kaminari practically drooling as they gazed at Ochako and Momo. Not wanting to cause a scene, Izuku turned his head away in frustration. Jesus guys, at least attempt to be discreet. Senseis, this appears to be the same area where we conducted our entrance exam. Tenya exclaimed as he raised his hand high into the air to get All Might and Rumi's attention. Will we once again be performing sit-escape maneuvers? So, that's Tenya in there, Izuku thought, examining Tenya's hero costume from head to toe. His hero outfit consisted of a black one-piece suit with a high collar, over which he wore various pieces of armor, all of which were pale silver in color, including a large chest plate. There was also a metallic collar around his neck, and another around his upper arm, with metal vambraces that extended past his elbows that were pointed at the ends. He wore a helmet that covered his entire face. It had a sharp bever full of holes to allow him to speak and breathe easily, and its upper piece rounded over his head with two larger holes on either side, two curved horns just behind, and a single spike that stuck out of the back of his head. That's a really cool costume. Looks vaguely familiar, though. Nope, All Might replied bluntly as he gestured toward the sprawling mock cityscape behind him. You'll be moving on to Step 2, Indoor Anti-Personnel Battle Training. Basically what that means is you'll be practicing fighting indoors this time, Rumi added, crossing her arms underneath her chest, a more serious look in her red eyes. Statistically, most villains are seen outdoors, but the more vile pieces of trash like to hide away indoors. Huh, that look in Rumi's eyes, Izuku thought as he stared at the dark-skinned rabbit hero in surprise. I guess when it comes to actual hero work, she can be serious. Confinement, house arrest, black market deals. Rumi listed off, briefly holding up 3 fingers before clenching them into a fist. In our world filled with heroes, the sneakiest and most twisted villains lurk behind closed doors. Listen up. I shall now explain the rules of this training session, All Might exclaimed as he pulled out a small handbook, cutting off several students before they could bombard him with questions. The villains will be hiding a dummy nuclear weapon in their hideout, and the heroes must infiltrate the base and neutralize the weapon. The heroes will have a limited amount of time to either capture the villains or secure the weapon. Villains, on the other hand, must capture the heroes or protect the weapon until the time limit is up. You'll all be split teams of 2, and your partners will be decided by drawing lots, Rumi said with a devious grin, grabbing a box and presenting it to the students. But this training session will have a fun twist. Slamming the box onto a nearby table, Rumi's grin widened as she pointed at herself with her thumb. I will be randomly joining one of your matches and aiding the villains. All of the students' eyes widened in shock when they hear this revelation. This will simulate unexpected complications that can happen while you're out in the field, like the sudden appearance of a powerful, unexpected enemy. Now I get it, Izuku thought as he happened to lock eyes with Rumi, the rabbit hero winking at him. Random my ass. She's gonna join in on my match and beat the hell out of me for stealing her criminals. After this, each of the students approached the box and pulled out a small ball with a letter on it, quickly forming up with their partner. The selected teams were as follows. Team A was Izuku and Ochako. Team B was Shoto Todoroki and Mizo Shoji. Team C was Momo and Minoru. Team D was Tenya and Katsuki. Team E was Mina and Yuga Aoyama. Team F was Rikido Sato and Koji Koda. Team G was Kyoka and Denki. Team H was Tsuyu and Fumikichi Takoyami. Team I Toru Hagakure and Mushirawa Jiro. And Team J were Hanta Siro and Ijiro Kirishima. I'm glad I got to team up with you, Deku, Ochako cheered with a large smile, pumping one of her fists into the air. Let's kick some serious butt. Definitely, we'll win for sure, Izuku said in a somewhat nervous tone as he glanced over at Rumi, who was off to the side performing some light stretches. If she really does join on our match, there's no way I can beat her. She's got too much experience and she's insanely strong. Tightly balling his fists, Izuku took a deep breath. The best I can do is hold her off for as long as possible. All right, I'll now be selecting the teams for our first matchup, All Might announced, reaching into 2 different colored boxes, both of which were filled with similarly labeled balls. After a few moments of rooting around, All Might pulled out a ball from each box. The heroes will be Team A. Izuku felt his heart begin to pound his chest. He wasn't expecting to be the first team called out. And the villains will be Team D. Oh no, Izuku thought as he felt his heart drop, nervously glancing over at Team D. Katsuki appeared to be shocked at first, but that was soon replaced with excitement. An evil smirk spread across Katsuki's face when he caught Izuku staring at him. This couldn't be a worse matchup. That's my cue. All Might, I'm jumping in already, Rumi suddenly said, waltzing over toward Tenny and Katsuki and resting a hand on both boys' shoulders. Looks like I'll be joining your team. You're welcome in advance for the win. Tenya excitedly nodded his head and welcomed Rumi to their team, while Katsuki merely growled in frustration. Let's get along, boys. Remember to go easy on them, Uzajama-sensei. They're still new students. Now, the villain team can head out first, All Might said as he gestured toward an adjacent room filled with several monitors. The timer will start in 5 minutes when the hero team sneaks in. The rest of us will watch everything via CCTV. After turning on the monitors, All Might approached Team D. Now Ida and Bakugo, you boys need to adopt a villain mindset. This is practical experience, so give it everything you've got. Though, I won't hesitate to jump in if things go too far. All Might then turned his attention to Rumi, locking eyes with her. I'll especially be keeping my eye on you. 5 minutes later. So these are the building's blueprints. Ochako muttered, her eyes narrowing slightly as she carefully scanned the sheet of paper in her grasp. We better memorize these. Releasing a light sigh, a smile soon spread across Ochako's face as she rested her hands on her hips. Since there's no punishment for failing this time, I'm not too worried. However, Ochako's smile faltered when she heard the familiar sounds of Izuku nervously muttering to himself. Turning around, Ochako wasn't surprised to see Izuku tightly clutching his own copy of the building's blueprints, his body trembling slightly. What's up, Deku? You look really worried. Well, we're not just up against Kaken and Tenya, but Mirko too, Izuku replied as his grip on the blueprints tightened, in a vain attempt to calm his racing heart. We just need to come up with a plan and be on guard. Bah, I'm not worried about Katsuki and Tenya. Mirko is a different story though, Ochako said with a huff, before stepping closer and patting Izuku on the back. We've got this, Deku. You were amazing during the entrance exam. Don't sell yourself short. You were amazing too, Ochako, Izuku said with a small smile which caused Ochako's cheeks to flush pink, her heart clenching briefly. Pulling out his phone, Izuku saw that they still had a few minutes before the training exercise would begin. Wanting to take his mind off their upcoming fight, Izuku decided to bring up something that had been bothering him. Hey, Ochako. This morning, you and the other girls were being kinda distant. Is something up? Oh, so you noticed that, Ochako muttered, momentarily caught off guard by Izuku's question. Humming to herself, Ochako's brow furrowed as she tried to think of how to properly reply. There's not anything wrong per se. It's just something important came up when I met the rest of the girls yesterday. We'll tell you more about it after school. Okay, that's a vague answer, but I won't press any further, Izuku said as he put his phone away and folded up the building blueprints. Why don't we come up with a plan then? Sounds good, Ochako said, gazing up at the building they needed to infiltrate. Do you have any ideas? I'm getting there, Izuku muttered as he stroked his chin, his mind racing through dozens of various scenarios. Taking a step forward, Izuku pointed toward the building's top floor. If I had to guess, The weapon we need to secure will be on the top floor. That makes sense, Ochako said, grabbing her costume's helmet and slipping it on. So, how will we secure the weapon? We'll need to separate the villains, which is actually going to be the easy part, Izuku said as he tightly balled his fists, his eyes narrowing in determination. Kaken and Mirko will be gunning for me right away, which will let you slip past them undetected. I'll keep them both busy. You'll just have to deal with Tenya and secure the weapon. Pausing for a moment, Izuku was struck with a sudden flash of inspiration. All right, Ochako, listen up. If things go south and you can't capture the weapon, just give me a signal and I'll create an opening for you. What will the opening be? Ochako asked, quirking an eyebrow in confusion. I have to know what to look out for. Oh, you'll know it when you see it, Izuku said with a smirk as he gestured toward a window near the top floor. That will be our infiltration point. Okay, listen up, heroes and villains, All Might's booming voice echoed over the PA system. Let the indoor anti-personnel training begin. Look who's being vague now, Ochako said with a smirk of her own, raising her fist. Let's do this, Deku. Yeah, we've got this in the bag, Ochako, Izuku said as he bumped fist with the bubbly, brown-haired girl. Turning to face the building, Izuku crouched down slightly. Now hop on, I'll get us into the building. Ochako hesitated for a moment but quickly climbed onto Izuku's back. After Ochako wrapped her arms around Izuku's neck, she felt his hands hook underneath her thighs. Izuku could feel his face burning as Ochako's large bosoms pressed against his back. Ignore it, ignore it, ignore it. Activating one for all, green electricity began to crackle all across Izuku's body. Once Izuku was sure that Ochako was secure, he took a deep breath and leaped forward. In a matter of seconds, Izuku had jumped several stories into the air, reaching their infiltration target almost instantly. Reaching out and using one hand, Izuku grabbed a hold of the large windowsill to steady himself. Izuku opened the window and entered the building, letting Ochako down as soon as they were inside. Infiltration successful, Ochako whispered, dusting herself off and glancing at the long, narrow hallways all around them. There's a ton blind corners in here, so we'll need to be careful. Stick close to me, Ochako, Izuku said quietly as he began to slowly make his way down the hallway in front of him. We don't know where. Deku, almost on cue, Katsuki came screaming around the corner right in front of Izuku. Seeing sparks crackling in Katsuki's hands, Izuku's eyes widened in surprise. Without a second thought, Izuku used his body to shield Ochako and dove to the side, a split second before an explosion blasted past where they had just been standing. That was a nice dodge, but why are you running, Deku? Stand and fight me. Damn it, he just grazed me, Izuku grunted as he got back onto his feet, ripping off the tattered remains of his mask. Raising his fists, Izuku stood protectively in front of Ochako. You okay, Ochako? Yeah, I'm fine. Thanks for the save, Ochako blurted, quickly scrambling onto her feet and glancing over at Katsuki. Are you sure you don't want me to stay and help? No, I've got this. Go take care of the weapon, Izuku said as he began to rapidly scan his surroundings. Besides, we still don't know where. Izuku was cut off mid-sentence when the wall beside him suddenly exploded open and an incredible force slammed into his side. All the air was knocked from Izuku's lungs as he was sent flying across the hall, slamming into the opposite wall. Coughing and gasping for air, Izuku peered through the dust and falling debris, seeing a long figure advancing toward him. As Izuku used the wall for support and got back onto his feet, the throbbing pain in his side told him exactly who his attacker was. There's Mirko. Damn, I got you good, kid, Rumi exclaimed, chuckling as she continued to advance toward Izuku. Don't tell me you're down after just one kick. Not a chance, Izuku growled in a determined tone as green electricity began to flow off his body, his veins glowing with one for all's energy. Sliding into a fighting stance, Izuku raised his fists once again. I can do this all day. Good, Rumi said with a devious smirk, licking her lips in excitement. That's what I like to hear. Oi! Katsuki roared as he stormed over to Mirko, getting right in the rabbit hero's face. Stay out of my fight. This is between me and Deku, Hag. Hag? Rumi growled in a menacing tone, a vein throbbing on her forehead as she turned to face Katsuki. Despite his earlier bravado, Katsuki couldn't help but step back in fear when he saw the rage burning in Rumi's blood-red eyes. You want to say that again, you little shit? And no, ma'am, I'm sorry, Katsuki exclaimed as he rapidly shook his head, a chill running down his spine. Did I say hag? I meant young and beautiful woman. Good, that's what I thought, Rumi said with a smirk, before turning to face Izuku again and cracking her knuckles. Now back me up, we've got some heroes to capture. Achako, get going, Izuku hissed as he motioned toward the opposite hallway. I will keep these two occupied. Okay, I'll get going. Good luck, Deku, Achako said, dashing down the hall and tapping her earpiece. I'll contact you when I find the weapon. How noble of you, letting your teammate escape, Rumi said as she began to walk toward Izuku, her devious smirk widening. But it won't help. We'll be going after her when we're done with you. She really does sound like a villain right now, Izuku thought, clenching his fists tighter and taking a deep breath to calm himself. But I can't back down now. The entrance exam was just the beginning. I have to keep proving myself. It was then that Rumi sprang into action, launching toward Izuku at an incredible speed. However, Izuku was prepared this time, managing to dodge Rumi's kick at the last second, her foot almost grazing his cheek. Wasting no time, Izuku grabbed Rumi's leg and used her momentum against her. Gritting his teeth, Izuku struggled to hold back one for all's immense energy. Keep the power down. I don't want to seriously hurt anyone. With a loud thud, Izuku slammed Rumi in the ground back first, momentarily stunning the pro hero. But Izuku had no time to rest, hearing several explosions ring out behind him. Whipping around, Izuku saw that Katsuki was rocketing toward him. Ducking underneath a small barrage of explosions, Izuku hit Katsuki in the gut with a powerful uppercut. Katsuki's eyes shot open in a mixture of shock and pain as he shot up into the air, slamming against the ceiling. Letting out a long exhale, Izuku turned around to see that Rumi was already back on her feet. A devious smirk had returned to the rabbit hero's face as she cracked a kink out of her neck. God damn, that was an impressive throw, kid, Rumi said as she rolled her shoulders, Katsuki landing back on the ground next to her. But it'll take more than that to keep me down. I was nervous at first, but I'm starting to find my groove, Izuku thought, green electricity crackling off his fists. Charging forward, a nervous smile spread across Izuku's face as he went on the attack. I want to wipe that smirk of Rumi's face. Same time, observation area. I was against Rumi participating at first, but she was unusually persistent. But this could be a good learning experience for young Midoriya, All Might thought as he tightly gripped a pen and clipboard, prepared to evaluate all the students' performances. But I have to be fair, no favoritism from me, young Midoriya. While we're in school, you're just another student and must be graded equally, so give it your all. Man, I wish we could hear what they're saying, Eijiro Kirishima said, crossing his arms over his chest as he closely watched the ongoing fight. He winced when he saw Izuku take another devastating kick from Mirko, only to quickly recover and counterattack. These cameras don't have any sound. Both teams were given micro-transceivers, blueprints to the building. All Might explained as he dug into his pocket and pulled out a roll of bright orange tape. And capture tape. If you manage to tie your opponent up with this, it'll be proof that you've captured them. Turning his head to gaze at the monitors once again, All Might released a light sigh. Although I doubt we'll see any captures in this match. The hero team only has 15 minutes, and they don't know where the weapon is located. Shoto Todoroki muttered, stroking his chin. They seem to be at quite the disadvantage. Aha, that's true. But it's just as Aizawa-sensei told you. Everyone say it with me, All Might exclaimed with a boisterous laugh as he pumped his fists into the air. Plus ultra. I'm worried about Izuku-chan, Tsuyu said, watching intently as the green-haired boy tried to hit Mirko with a powerful punch, but she managed to deflect it with her leg. He's strong, but I don't think he can take Bakugo and Usagium-sensei at the same time. It's not Katsuki you have to worry about, Mina said, resting her hands on her hips, her brow furrowing slightly. The pink-skinned girl scoffed when she saw Katsuki roar in anger after missing another attack. He's kinda scary when he's angry, but Izuku can handle him. There's no one who knows Katsuki better than Izuku. Usajima-sensei, on the other hand, yeah, I'm worried about her. Izuku does seem to be holding out quite well, Momo muttered as she carefully analyzed all of Izuku's movements, impressed with his incredible agility and reflexes. She was especially fascinated when she saw Izuku vault over Katsuki, sending him crashing directly into Mirko. This led to a brief spat between the two members of the villain team. As long as he keeps this up, I'm sure that he will come out on top. TCH, I'm not worried at all, Kyoka said with a chuckle, crossing his arms underneath her chest. Izuku will kick their asses. Language, young lady, All Might suddenly exclaimed, which caused Kyoka's face to flush bright red in embarrassment. Now everyone, pay attention. Glancing down, All Might jotted down a few notes onto his clipboard. Looks like young Midoriya was correct. Bakugo is as conceited as they come. He's only focusing on Midoriya and isn't working well with his teammates. His head's swollen up a bit too much. Back with Ochako? Found you, Ochako thought, poking her head out from behind a column and spotting the dummy nuclear weapon. In front of the weapon was Tenya, who appeared to be agitated as he paced back and forth. Deku was right. It was on the top floor, and they left Tenya alone to defend it. Now, how am I going to capture the weapon? I can't believe they both ran off on their own. What could they be thinking? Tenya exclaimed in frustration as he stopped his pacing and shook his head. Bakugo seems to have a natural tendency toward troublemaking, so this exercise is perfect for him. Usajima-sensei seemed to be getting into character as well. I suppose that leaves me no choice. I must also take on the role of a villain. This will likely bring shame to the Ida family name, but this training will help me become a better man. I must fully commit. Suddenly, Tenya let out an uncharacteristically evil cackle. I am supreme evil. PFFT Ochako tried unsuccessfully to suppress her giggles by covering her mouth. He's getting way too into this. Realizing that she had likely blown her cover, Ochako poked her head out once again and wasn't surprised to see Tenya staring right at her. Oh, damn it. Ahaha, I see you've Uraraka-san, Tenya proclaimed, enthusiastically pointing at his exposed opponent. I figured you'd arrive first after Bakugo and Usajima-sensei ran off. I remember that your quirk allows you to levitate any object you touch, so before you arrive. Spreading his arms out, Tenya gestured toward his almost sparkling clean surroundings. I performed my own plan, a counter-strategy designed specifically for you. I removed all objects on the floor that you could use. Your little tricks won't work here, hero. Haha. Oh yeah, he's getting way too into this, Ochako muttered as she cringed at Tenya's over-the-top performance. But this will definitely make things more difficult. Back with Izuku. I managed to lose them for a moment. Those two are relentless, Izuku said underneath his breath, leaning against a wall to try and catch his breath. I hope Ochako is doing well on her end. Deku. Ochako, what's up? Izuku asked as he pressed a hand to his ear. Are you okay? I'm sorry, but Tenya found me. For now, I'm keeping my distance, but he could attack at any moment. Where are you now? Izuku asked, glancing all around him as he searched for a way to join up with Ochako. I need your exact position. You were right about the weapon being on the top floor. It's in the center of the room. Top floor center of the room, so right above me. Izuku thought as he stared up at the ceiling overhead. Looks like I'll have to use my backup plan. With a grunt of exertion, Izuku stood back upright when he saw Rumi and Katsuki had found his location. Ochako, remember that signal I mentioned earlier. Be ready for it. Got it, Deku. But we need to hurry. We're running out of time. Found you, Izuku, Rumi exclaimed with a wicked smile, launching at him with a devastating kick. Barely managing to dodge the attack, Izuku winced as he watched Rumi kick cleanly through the wall he had been leaning against. I really wish you wouldn't run away. That we agree on, Katsuki roared as he used his explosions to propel himself toward Izuku. Just stay in one place and fight us, damn it. You want to fight, Kaken, Izuku thought, winding up his fist back. With incredible speed, Izuku's fist shot forward, slamming into Katsuki's cheek. Crashing into a nearby wall, Katsuki slumped against in bewilderment. Letting out a long exhale, Izuku gazed at Katsuki's dazed form. You've got to fight. Izuku then turned to face Rumi, his eyes narrowing in determination. While Kaken is stunned, I need to. Don't think you've won, Deku, Katsuki exclaimed in a somewhat groggy tone as he pointed his arm toward Izuku. With an evil smirk, Katsuki looped his index finger through the pin on his grenade-like gauntlet. With all the stalking you've done, you should know that the sweat from my palms is like nitroglycerin. That's where my explosions come from. If they honored my design requests, my gauntlets should have been storing that fluid. Oh no, Izuku thought in a panic, his eyes widening in shock. There's no way he can properly aim that thing right now. He might hit. Whipping his head around, Izuku gasped when he saw that Rumi was also in the crossfire. I gotta move fast. Just as a blinding flash of light burst out of Katsuki's gauntlet, Izuku instantly sprang into action. Using even more of One for All's power, Izuku was surrounded by green electricity, and his veins radiated brightly as he rocketed forward. In the blink of an eye, Izuku was wrapping his arms around Rumi's waist and tackled her out of the massive explosion's path. With a grunt, Izuku and Rumi both crashed through a wall, with the green-haired boy using his body to shield the rabbit hero. Rumi's eyes were wide in shock as she watched a huge fireball flood the hallway they had just been standing in. After a few moments, the roaring explosion began to fade away. Breathing a sigh of relief, Izuku got off Rumi and stepped back out in the hall. Izuku was awestruck as he gazed at the destroyed hallway, filled with flaming debris and crumbling walls. Holy shit, Kaken, Izuku thought as he turned his attention to Katsuki, who was still slumped against the wall, panting heavily. You could have killed someone. With Ochako. What the heck is going on? Tenya exclaimed, the floor underneath him quaking and causing him to falter a bit. Is that Bakugo? Wait, this is my chance, Ochako thought just as the building stopped trembling. Pressing her fingertips together to activate her quirk, Ochako sprinted toward the weapon. All we need to do is secure the weapon. That'll get Deku out of whatever the hell is going on down there. Oh no you don't, Tenya shouted, sprinting over to block Ochako's path. I won't let you past. Sorry Tenya, but I'm winning this match, Ochako thought before she crouched down and sprang into the air. Tenya gasped in surprise as he watched Ochako easily float over his head. You don't know everything about my quirk. What? Tenya bellowed in shock, whipping around to see that Ochako was levitating closer to the weapon. You can make your own body float? Dispel, Ochako yelled as she pressed her fingertips together once again, causing her to rapidly fall back toward the ground. Outstretching her arms, Ochako prepared to secure the dummy weapon. This special move takes a lot out of me, but it's worth it. No you don't, Tenya exclaimed, activating his quirk and sprinting forward at an incredible speed. Just as Ochako was about to touch the weapon, Tenya caught up with her and carried it away. You will not win, hero. Oh shit, Ochako gasped as she swiped at thin air, tumbling forward and crashing into the ground. With a grunt, Ochako skidded across the ground, her helmet flying off her head. Groaning in pain, Ochako rubbed her head. Ah, that hurt. Your quirk poses no threat as long as you can't touch anything, Tenya said, setting the weapon back down and standing protectively in front of it. No struggle in vain, hero. I will bleed out all of your remaining time. Ahahaha. Ugh, where's that signal, Deku? Ochako muttered as she slowly got back onto her feet, clutching her bruised arm. I'm counting on you right now. Back with Izuku. You are done, Rumi growled in a furious tone, slamming her foot through the wall next to Katsuki's head. Pulling out her capture tape, Rumi wasted no time wrapping Katsuki up with it. Katsuki resisted at first and looked like he was about to protest, but stopped when he saw the fire burning in Rumi's eyes. You could have seriously injured someone with that attack, maybe even killed them. All Might and I will have a talk with you after class. Huffing in frustration, Rumi turned around and saw Izuku staring at her awkwardly. Thanks for the rescue, kid. You really saved my tail. We can call the match here, or we can continue our fight. It's up to you. I want to continue my fight with Kaken, Izuku said as he stared down at his hand, before clenching his fist. Green electricity sparked off Izuku's body as a smile spread across his face. But I also want to keep fighting you too, Rumi. Ha! I was hoping you'd say that. I don't want to stop either, Rumi exclaimed with a smirk, sprinting toward Izuku at an incredible speed. Winding up, Rumi unleashed a deadly roundhouse kick. And it's Usajima-sensei while we're in school. Ducking down, Izuku avoided Rumi's kick and made a flicking gesture with his hand. At almost point-blank range, Izuku fired a Delaware smash, shooting a decent-sized ball of wind pressure at Rumi. Using her incredible reflexes, Rumi leaned back and dodged Izuku's attack, the ball of wind narrowly missing her head. Feeling her adrenaline start to pump, a feral grin spread across Rumi's face. Luna Arc, Rumi exclaimed as she raised her leg high into the air and unleashed a powerful front-facing axe kick. Barely reacting in time, Izuku leaped to the side and narrowly avoided Rumi's kick. Izuku's eyes widened in surprise as he watched Rumi's foot partially cave in the floor, causing it to crack and crumble. Giving Izuku no chance to breathe, Rumi sprang up into the air. Luna fall. Damn it, she's not giving me any openings, Izuku thought, watching as Rumi swung her foot downwards, attempting to hit him with a devastating kick. Rolling away, Izuku evaded Rumi's attack and tried to counter as she recovered. Just as Rumi was digging her foot out of the floor, Izuku launched a powerful punch. However, before Izuku's fist could connect, Rumi whipped around and unleashed another roundhouse kick. Having to abandon his attack, Izuku just managed to dodge Rumi's kick. She's so strong, I'm still too inexperienced to fight her one-on-one. I gotta say, kid, you're pretty damn impressive. No wonder All Might chose you as his successor, Rumi said as she panted lightly, sweat dripping off her brow. I haven't had to fight this hard in a while. Most guys I fight go down in one hit. Rolling her shoulders, Rumi smirked at Izuku. How about we end this fight? I'm game, and don't come crying to me when you lose, Izuku said with a nervous, yet confident smile, causing Rumi to let out a hearty laugh. Glancing up at the ceiling, Izuku decided that it was time to put his secret plan into action. After a brief stare-down, Izuku and Rumi charged toward each other, determination blazing in both their eyes. As the distance between them closed, Izuku began to rapidly increase One for All's power in his right arm, causing it to glow brightly with energy. Seeing that Rumi was winding up for a flying kick, Izuku lowered himself closer to the floor. Then, just before Rumi could land her kick, Izuku rocketed upward, his fist literally humming with 100% of One for All's energy. Izuku pushed through the pain as he felt the bones in his arm start to shatter and his skin tear apart. Now, Ochako, Hold on to something. In the blink of an eye, before Rumi could even react, Izuku's fist sped past her chin, almost grazing it. Her red eyes widened in shock as she was blasted by a powerful shockwave that nearly knocked her off her feet. It was then that Rumi heard a deafening crash overhead. Looking up, Rumi's jaw fell open when she saw the massive hole in not just the ceiling, but also the building's roof. When Rumi looked back at Izuku, she was stunned to see that his right was appeared to be completely shattered, covered in lacerations and looking completely discolored. Holy, I knew this kid was strong, but I had no idea he was holding back this much power. He tore open the roof with just the air pressure from his attack. Rumi thought, feeling her heart thunder in her chest as a nervous smirk spread across her face. This kid gets more interesting by second. 2 minutes earlier, back with Ochako. Now, Ochako, hold on to something. Got it, Ochako exclaimed as she dashed over to the nearest column and hugged it tightly. A split second later, the entire floor began to tremble, before the ground in front of Ochako exploded open. As Ochako watched debris fill the air, she smirked when she realized what Izuku's backup plan was. Activating her quirk, Ochako lifted up the column she was holding onto. Sorry about this in advance, Tenya, but I've gotta improvise. With a grunt, Ochako swung the column like it was a massive bat, hitting a large volley of falling debris. Comet home run. How is that a home run? Tenya exclaimed in a panic, raising his arms to shield himself from the flying chunks of concrete and metal. As Tenya blunted the barrage, he gazed and saw that Ochako was once again leaping overhead. Ah, the weapon. Secured. Ochako breathed out as she let out a sigh of relief, grabbing a hold of the dummy weapon. Your plan worked, Deku. The hero team wins, All Might's voice thundered over the pass, signaling the end of the match. Everyone please return to the observation area. Back with Izuku. So, you had a secret plan from the start, Rumi muttered, staring up at the gaping hole in the ceiling. Very impressive kid. I knew that I couldn't take you and Kaken both in a straight fight. Izuku hissed in pain as he supported his trembling and battered arm. So I needed a backup plan. Suddenly, Izuku's vision became hazy and his legs began to wobble. After a few moments of swaying, Izuku felt himself falling forward. However, before he hit the ground, a pair of muscular arms wrapped around him. Looking up groggily, Izuku saw that it was Rumi who had caught him. Thanks for that. Let's call it payback for you saving me from Blondie's explosion, Rumi said with a smile, helping Izuku stand back upright and letting him lean against her. When Izuku's head rested against her shoulder, Rumi felt her cheeks flush slightly. God, I hope he can't hear how hard my heart is beating right now. That would be so embarrassing. Whipping her head around, Rumi glared at Katsuki, who was still wrapped in the capture tape. Come on, numbnuts, we're heading back. You could at least untie me first, Katsuki roared as he violently thrashed around in an attempt to break free from the tape. But Katsuki's shouts fell upon deaf ears as Rumi and Izuku began to walk away. Scrambling onto his feet, Katsuki jogged after both of them. Oi, don't ignore me, I'm talking to you too. After linking up with Ochako and Tenya, with the brunette girl helping Rumi support Izuku, the 5 heroes returned to the observation area. As soon as Izuku stepped back into the observation room, he was immediately surrounded by Momo, Kyoka, and Mina. All 3 girls were worried about the green-haired boy and wanted to see if he was okay. But before any of them could crowd Izuku any further, a medical team came to gather Izuku, escorting him to the nurse's office. As Izuku left the room, Rumi clutched a hand over her still pounding heart. Man, what a rush. I haven't had a fight that exciting in a long time, Rumi thought with a smirk, resting her hands on her hips. Rolling her shoulders, Rumi winced slightly as a sharp pain shot down her shoulder. While she was largely unscathed, Izuku had managed to get a few good shots in on her, especially when he slammed her into the ground. But Rumi didn't mind the pain. It was a reminder of a great fight. Looks like working for UA was the right call. Listen up everyone, let's go over the results from Team A and D's match. All Might announced as he gathered all of 1A's students around him, carrying a still tied-up Katsuki. Having given up on protesting, Katsuki appeared to be sulking instead. Before I begin, I want you all to know, whether you win or lose your match, you need to use this training as a learning experience. Now, while the hero team won the match, the MVP was actually Ida. Huh? I don't understand. Tsuyu said in a confused tone, pressing a finger to her chin. Shouldn't it be Izuku-chan or Ochako-chan since they won? Is that so? I wonder why. All Might said with a laugh as he turned to face the rest of the class. Anyone care to answer? I believe I know why. Momo said, raising her hand into the air. It's because Ida was most able to adapt to the scenario. From what we saw today. Letting out an exasperated sigh, Momo shot Katsuki a sideways glance. And what I know from personal experience, all of Bakugo's actions were motivated by his grudge against Izuku. Usajima-sensei seemed to have a similar agenda as well. And as we've previously learned, using destructive attacks indoors is foolish and dangerous. While Izuku may have fought well, he had to suffer serious injuries to win. Pausing for a moment, Momo glanced over Ochako and her friend an apologetic look. And as for Ochako, she lost focus and revealed her position to Ida. Her last attack was quite chaotic as well. Such an attack would be unimaginable with a nuclear weapon in the vicinity. Wow, I don't think. Ida, on the other hand, formed an actual counter-strategy. Momo continued her explanation, completely cutting Rumi off, much to her annoyance. He even attempted to get into the role of a villain. Only at the end did he falter. To be brutally honest, the hero team only won because this training exercise has very lenient conditions to win. Goddamn girl, Rumi thought as she sweat-dropped, staring at Momo in utter disbelief. Are we sure you aren't actually a teacher? Yes, that was a perfect explanation. All Might said, feeling as if all his thunder had been stolen away as he gave Momo an awkward thumbs up. To add one thing, Ida did seem to be a bit stiff, but other than that you're correct, Momo. Sorry if I was a bit harsh, but we must be earnest and honest with each other. We're all starting from the bottom and working our way up, Momo said as crossed her arms underneath her chest and nodded her head. If we don't support each other and point out our flaws, we'll never become pro-heroes. 2 hours later. Well done, everyone. You all did a great job, All Might bellowed, throwing his head back and letting out a hearty laugh. There were no serious injuries, apart from Midoriya's. Most of the teams had good teamwork too. Considering this was your first real training exercise, you all did a splendid job. Do you have anything else to add, Usajima-sensei? Not really, you kinda took the words out of my mouth, Rumi said as shook her head and shrugged her shoulders. Although, some of your attacks were pretty stiff and uncoordinated. But that'll improve with practice and experience. We'll work on that when we have more combat-heavy exercises soon. Okay, if there's nothing else, this training exercise is officially over. I will go give Midoriya his evaluation, All Might exclaimed, waving to the a student as he began to walk away. Change out of your costumes and head back to the classroom. With a thunderous boom, All Might took off running toward the school building. However, before he was out of sight, All Might spared one last look at Katsuki. Bakugo, that bundle of arrogance. The most inflated egos are often the most fragile. As his teacher, I'll have to give him some special counseling. Coughing in his hand, All Might grimaced when he saw blood on his skin. Damn it, I can barely make it through one class. After entering the school building, All Might quickly darted through the hallways, until he reached the nurse's office. Quickly throwing the door open, All Might stepped inside just as his muscular form wore off. Breathing a sigh of relief, the now skinny All Might leaned against the door. After taking a deep breath, All Might scanned the office, quickly spotted Recovery Girl and Izuku. The young boy was resting on a bed, his injured arm in a sling, while Recovery Girl sat in a chair nearby. "Goodness gracious, I was hoping he wouldn't be back here so soon," Recovery Girl hissed in a frustrated tone as she spun around in her seat to face All Might. "Why didn't you stop him before he could get injured?" "I'm sorry, Recovery Girl," All Might said, nervously rubbing the back of his head. "I didn't intend." "I don't need your apology," Recovery Girl huffed as she pinched the bridge of her nose. "Over the years, I've helped Izuku heal his injuries countless times, and he just recently started to get more control over his quirk. But if he keeps getting hurt like this, it could lead to permanent complications. For now, I've given him emergency first aid and an IV drip. But after that, all we can do is wait for him to recover on his own." Seeing All Might hang his head in disappointment, Recovery Girl released a heavy sigh. "I know you gave Izuku your quirk, and you two are very close, but please stop indulging him." "No, you're absolutely right. I have been too easy on him, especially the past year," All Might said in agreement, scratching his cheek. "But could you please keep it down? At least when we're discussing one for all." "Ah yes, I forgot. Sure thing, Mr. Natural-born hero," Recovery Girl said in a sarcastic tone as she spun back around in her chair. "Mr. Symbol of Peace. My true form and my injury are common knowledge to the staff here at UA," All Might said, pressing a hand against his chest. "But only you, the principal, an old friend of mine, and young Midoriya know about my quirk's true power. It's a secret to everyone else." "I don't suppose that's just you resting on your laurels, then?" Recovery Girl asked as she kept her back turned toward All Might. "Is it really that important? That you are a natural-born hero and a symbol of peace? Without me, this superhuman society of ours would fall to evil," All Might said, staring down at his calloused and battered hands. "This is the responsibility of those who wield this power. If that is truly the case," Recovery Girl said as she glanced over at Izuku's sleeping form, "then it's even more important that you guide him properly." Several hours later, after school. "Oh man, Aizawa-sensei is gonna chew me out," Izuku grumbled, standing outside the door to 1A's classroom. Opening the sliding door, Izuku stepped into the class. "I just hope he goes easy." "Oh, Midoriya is finally here. Welcome back, man," Ijiro Kirishima exclaimed as he rushed over to the green-haired boy, catching him off guard. "I didn't get to hear what you were saying, but that fight was absolutely wild. I can't believe you held off Katsuki and Mirko." "And your dodging was amazing," Mina cheered with a beaming smile, suddenly popping up next to Izuku. "I didn't know you were so flexible. We should totally go dancing sometime." "Hey Deku, is your arm okay?" Ochako asked in an apologetic tone as she gently placed her hand on Izuku's cast. "Did Recovery Girl heal you?" I wasn't able to get it fully healed," Izuku replied with a nervous chuckle, rubbing the back of his head. "I was pretty worn out because of the fight, so Recovery Girl was only able to do so much. Sorry to worry you, Ochako." Glancing around the classroom, Izuku quirked an eyebrow when he noticed that someone appeared to be missing. "Hey, Ochako, where's Kaken?" Learning that Katsuki had left a bit early, Izuku took off sprinting after his frenemy. Skidding around corners and leaping down entire stairwells, Izuku reached the school's entrance in no time. Bursting through the front doors, Izuku spotted Katsuki slowly walking toward the front gate. Without a second thought, Izuku went running after Katsuki. "Kaken," Izuku called out as he waved his good arm. "Hold on a sec, Kaken." "TCH." Katsuki scoffed, tightly gripping the strap of his backpack as he glanced back at Izuku. "What the hell do you want, Deku?" "Look, I can't tell you the specifics, but you should know this at least," Izuku thought, taking a deep breath to calm himself. "I haven't even told Ochako and the other girls my secret yet, but me suddenly getting a quirk has been eating away at Kaken for years." tightly balling his fist. Izuku locked eyes with Katsuki. I got my quirk from someone else. I can't tell you from who. I'm still mastering this borrowed power. But I will make it my own one day. And when I do, I'll beat you with my own power. What the hell are you even talking about? Borrowed power. I have no clue what you're talking about. Katsuki said in a frustrated tone as he grit his teeth in frustration. But I guess you've been making a fool out of me for years now, right? I mean, what the hell? I lost to you today. And not only that, I lost my cool and put you and Uzajima-sensei in danger. Because of that, I got scolded by her for almost an hour. And that's not even the worst part. Kaken. Izuku thought, his eyes widening in surprise. I knew you were frustrated, but not this much. That icy bastard in our class, there's no way I can measure up to him, Katsuki exclaimed as tightly balled his fists, tears forming in his eyes. Damn it, that ponytail girl really opened my eyes. She said it perfectly. From here on, and I mean from here on, I'll beat you all, and that means you too. Deku. After locking their eyes for a few more moments, Katsuki rapidly wiped away his tears and turned back around. Enjoy your win, it'll never happen again. Young Bakugo, a familiar voice yelled a split second before some gripped Katsuki's shoulder, stopping him in his tracks. Turning his head, Katsuki was surprised to see All Might standing behind him. Let me tell you one thing, that self-respect of yours is important. Without a doubt, you've got the makings of a pro hero. From now on, you just need to. Get your hands off me, All Might, I'm leaving, Katsuki said, roughly shrugging off All Might's hand. Needless to say, I'll be a hero that even surpasses you. Ah, looks like he's back to normal. All Might thought as he watched Katsuki continue to walk toward the front gate. Being a teacher sure is tough. Releasing a heavy sigh, All Might began to head back toward the school building. Well, I'll see you tomorrow, young Midoriya. I have to go and help Aizawa grade papers. Hey kid, you got a second? Someone spoke up from behind Izuku. Turning around, Izuku saw that it was Rumi who had spoken to him, arms crossed underneath her chest. I want to talk to you about our fight earlier. Sure thing, Izuku said, rubbing the back of his head. What did you want to discuss, Rumi? It's just that I noticed one thing during our fight, Rumi said as she raised her leg and threw a kick just past Izuku's head. You didn't throw a single kick that entire fight, only using punches and grapples. Lowering her leg, Rumi locked eyes with Izuku. I know All Might is your mentor, and he's all about punching things, but you should consider diversifying your fighting style. Having more moves at your disposal is never a bad thing. Huh, Izuku muttered, stroking his chin as he glanced down at his legs. I never even considered that. You do have a point. I should consider incorporating kicks into my move set. Thanks for the advice, Rumi. No problem, kid, Rumi said with a smirk before she turned around and began to walk back toward the school building. If you ever want to spare Izuku, just let me know. I'll throw down with you anytime. Rumi may actually end up being a pretty good teacher, Izuku muttered with a small smile, moments before feeling his phone start to vibrate. Pulling it out, Izuku saw that he had received a text message. Huh? Ochako wants to meet me on the roof. Must have something to do with what we talked about before our training match. Slipping his phone back into his pocket, Izuku gazed up at the school's roof. I have a feeling this is going to be a weird discussion. 5 minutes later, UA. University roof. Hey Ochako, I'm here, Izuku said as he pushed open the door and stepped onto the school's roof. However, he was surprised to see that Ochako wasn't the only person waiting for him on the roof. She was also joined by Kyoka, Momo, and Mina. Oh, what are you all doing up here? Deku, we've all got something really important we need to tell you, Ochako said in a somewhat nervous tone, clutching a hand over her speeding heart. A gentle breeze blew over the roof, as glanced over at her best friends. The 4 girls nodded at each other before they all approached Izuku. Ochako now stood directly in front of Izuku, reaching out and gently gripping his uninjured hand. Deku, we've known each other most of our lives. You've saved my life more than once. We've shared so many laughs and amazing moments together. With tears forming in her eyes, a warm smile spread across Ochako's face. Deku, I love you. I've loved you for a very long time. Izuku gasped, feeling a knot instantly forming in his throat as his face flushed almost neon red. However, before Izuku could say anything in response, Ochako pressed a finger against his lips. Before you say anything, there's something else you need to hear. Izuku, Kyoka said as she stepped forward and nervously gripped Izuku's hand, fidgeting a bit in embarrassment. When you came into the music store 4 years ago, I had no idea you'd become such an important part of my life. We've spent so much time together and just being around you makes me happy. You've helped me in more ways than you could understand, and I couldn't imagine my life without you anymore. With her face flushing bright red, Kyoka sputtered for a few moments before she managed to blurt out her feeling. I love you, Izuku. I guess it's my turn now, Mina said with a grin, taking Kyoka's place and standing in front of Izuku. I won't bore you with all the mushy stuff, Izuku. The first time we met, you saved my life, and from that very moment, I've known you were my Prince Charming. Just being near you makes my heart beat faster, and I can easily imagine a perfect life with you. Izuku, giggling to herself, Mina's grin widened. So, you can probably guess where I'm going with all this? I love you too. Izuku, you're my perfect man. That was rather blunt, but it was to the point, Momo said with tinged cheeks as she now stood in front of Izuku, smiling softly at him. After 3 of these, I'm sure you know what I'm about to tell you. Izuku, like Ochako and Mina, you saved my life and I was immediately infatuated with you. That infatuation has only grown over the years and I treasure all the time we've spent together. After everything we've been through, I can confidently say that I love you, Izuku. Izuku muttered incoherently, his brain fried after being confessed to by 4 beautiful girls. The green-haired boy's mind was a complete mess, struggling to comprehend what had just happened. Izuku knew that he cared for each of the girls. Hell, he was positive that he loved them all too. The past week, he was worried that one of the girls may confess to him, but there was no way he could have predicted all of them sharing their feelings for him. Seeing that the 4 girls were staring at him expectantly, Izuku took a deep breath to try and calm his nerves. Girls, you have no idea how happy I am right now. You're all so special to me, and I love each you. But at least right now, there's no way I could choose one of you. That's the thing, Izuku, Mina said as she pulled out a small book and handed it to the green-haired boy. Quirking an eyebrow in confusion, grabbed the book and examined it. What if you didn't have to choose one of us? High School XTX, Izuku said, flipping the manga over and reading the back cover. I mean, it has a surprisingly good story and fun characters, with some engaging romance. I don't understand how this will. Izuku paused mid-sentence as he gazed at an image of the series' main protagonist surrounded by a harem of girls who loved him. As the gears began to turn in Izuku's mind, his eyes shot open in utter shock. Several times, Izuku looked between the manga and the group of girls standing in front of him. You guys, you can't be serious. This is some weird joke, right? We're absolutely serious, Ochako said as she stepped forward and pressed her hand against Izuku's chest, with the other 3 girls surrounding him as well. All 4 of us love you, Deku, but we don't want to ruin our friendship, so we figured we'd try sharing you. Same time, back alley bar. Did you see this? A wispy voice said, before setting a newspaper on the bar's counter. He's a teacher now. Now this is interesting, a man covered in embalmed hands said as he gazed down at the newspaper, seeing an image of All Might plastered on the front page. What would happen if villains killed the symbol of peace? Hey Ochako, I'm here, Izuku said as he pushed open the door and stepped onto the school's roof. However, He was surprised to see that Ochako wasn't the only person waiting for him on the roof. She was also joined by Kyoka, Momo, and Mina, all 4 girls staring at him expectantly. "Oh, what are you all doing up here? I thought I was just meeting Ochako." "Deku, we've all got something really important we need to tell you," Ochako said in a somewhat nervous tone, clutching a hand over her speeding heart. A gentle breeze blew over the roof, as glanced over at her best friends. The 4 girls nodded at each other before they all approached Izuku. Ochako now stood directly in front of Izuku, reaching out and gently gripping his uninjured hand. "Deku, we've known each other most of our lives. You've saved my life more than once. We've shared so many laughs and amazing moments together." With tears forming in her eyes, a warm smile spread across Ochako's face. "Deku, I love you. I've loved you for a very long time." Izuku gasped, feeling a knot instantly forming in his throat as his face flushed almost neon red. However, before Izuku could say anything in response, Ochako pressed a finger against his lips. "Before you say anything, there's something else you need to hear." "Izuku," Kyoka said as she stepped forward and nervously gripped Izuku's hand, fidgeting a bit in embarrassment. "When you came into the music store 4 years ago, I had no idea you'd become such an important part of my life. We've spent so much time together, and just being around you makes me happy. You've helped me in more ways than you could understand, and I couldn't imagine my life without you anymore." With her face flushing bright red, Kyoka sputtered for a few moments before she managed to blurt out her feeling. "I love you, Izuku." "I guess it's my turn now," Mina said with a grin, taking Kyoka's place and standing in front of Izuku. "I won't bore you with all the mushy stuff, Izuku. The first time we met, you saved my life, and from that very moment, I've known you were my Prince Charming. Just being near you makes my heart beat faster, and I can easily imagine a perfect life with you, Izuku." Giggling to herself, Mina's grin widened. "So, you can probably guess where I'm going with all this. I love you too, Izuku. You're my perfect man." That was rather blunt, but it was to the point, Momo said with tinged cheeks as she now stood in front of Izuku, smiling softly at him. "After 3 of these, I'm sure you know what I'm about to tell you, Izuku. Like Ochako and Mina, you saved my life and I was immediately infatuated with you. That infatuation has only grown over the years and I treasure all the time we've spent together. After everything we've been through, I can confidently say that I love you, Izuku." I, Izuku muttered incoherently, his brain fried after being confessed to by 4 beautiful girls. The green-haired boy's mind was a complete mess, struggling to comprehend what had just happened. Izuku knew that he cared for each of the girls. Hell, he was positive that he loved them all too. The past week, he was worried that one of the girls may confess to him, but there was no way he could have predicted all of them sharing their feelings for him. Seeing that the 4 girls were staring at him expectantly, Izuku took a deep breath to try and calm his nerves. "Girls, you have no idea how happy I am right now. You're all so special to me, and I love each you. But at least right now, there's no way I could choose one of you." "That's the thing, Izuku," Mina said as she pulled out a small book and handed it to the green-haired boy. Quirking an eyebrow in confusion, grabbed the book and examined it. "What if you didn't have to choose one of us?" "High School XDX," Izuku said, flipping the manga over and reading the back cover. "I mean, it has a surprisingly good story and fun characters, with some engaging romance. I don't understand how this will." Izuku paused mid-sentence as he gazed at an image of the series' main protagonist surrounded by a harem of girls who loved him. As the gears began to turn in Izuku's mind, his eyes slowly began to widen in utter shock. Several times, Izuku looked between the manga and the group of girls standing in front of him. You guys, you can't be serious. This is some weird joke, right?" "We're absolutely serious," Ochako said as she stepped forward and pressed her hand against Izuku's chest, with the other 3 girls surrounding him as well. "All 4 of us love you, Deku, but we don't want to ruin our friendship, so We figured we'd try sharing you. Well you see Izuku stammered uncontrollably, his face burning vibrant red as he began to visibly shake. Despite being one of the smartest people in his class, Izuku literally couldn't comprehend what was currently happening. He simply couldn't fathom why 4 beautiful women would fall in love with him, let alone decide to share him. After a few more moments of incoherent mumbling, Izuku's vision began to blur, and he started to wobble in place. Suddenly, Izuku slumped forward, dropping against Ochako's chest. The 4 girls surrounding Izuku gasped in surprise as Ochako quickly caught him before he could fall to the ground. Slowly kneeling down, Ochako laid Izuku's head down on her lap, with the Kyoka, Momo, and Mina sitting around her. All 4 girls were starting to panic a bit as they leaned in close to examine Izuku. The green-haired boy was breathing softly as he laid against Ochako's thighs, occasionally mumbling something underneath his breath. Did Izuku really just pass out? Momo asked in a concerned tone as reached out and gently stroked the unconscious boy's cheek. I guess we did overwhelm him with all of confessing at once. I've caught Izuku ogling each of us a bunch of times, so I know that he's at least attracted to us. But he's so inexperienced when it comes to love and romance, Mina said with a sly smile as she crouched down next to Izuku. Giggling to herself, Mina rested her head on her palms. I love that cute innocent side of him. Izuku is one of the strongest people I know. I mean his match earlier today against Mirko was insane, Kyoka said before sitting down next to Ochako, running her fingers through Izuku's messy green hair. So, it's kinda nice to see his more insecure side like this. It's a nice change of pace. Maybe it wasn't such a good idea to drop all this on him at once, Ochako muttered as she let out a light sigh, adjusting Izuku so that he would be more comfortable. As Ochako stared down at Izuku's face, she couldn't help but smile. Raising her head, Ochako saw the other 3 girls lovingly staring at Izuku, the same way she would gaze at him when he wasn't looking. At that moment, it truly sunk in for Ochako that she really wasn't the only one who loved Izuku, and that the girls who shared her feelings were her best friends. Feeling a sudden rush of confidence, Ochako smiled warmly and gently brushed some hair out of Izuku's face. I was a little uneasy about this whole harem thing at first, but we'll find a way to make it work. Knowing how stubborn Deku can be, he'll definitely work his hardest to make us all happy. The 4 girls shared a knowing look, silently agreeing with Ochako's sentiments. Suddenly Izuku began to stir, groaning a bit as he pressed a hand to his forehead. Slowly, Izuku's eyes fluttered open, his vision blurry for a few moments. After blinking several times, Izuku began to recognize that people were leaning over him. It didn't take him long to realize that it was Ochako, Kyoka, Mina, and Momo. When Izuku moved his head slightly, he felt that it was resting against something incredibly soft. Noticing that Ochako's face was directly above his own, Izuku deduced that he was likely resting his head on her lap. Then, like a flash of lightning, everything that had just happened between Izuku and the 4 girls came flooding back to him. His face instantly bright red, Izuku's eyes shot open, and he bolted upright off Ochako's lap. Ugh, damn it, Izuku groaned, wincing slightly as he gripped his head. Feeling his heart pounding in his chest, Izuku tried to fight back his raging blush. How long was I out for? Just for a minute, Ochako replied with a nervous chuckle as she rubbed the back of her head. Sorry if we overwhelmed you, Deku. We just wanted to tell you our feelings. No, there's no need for you girls to apologize, Izuku said with a small smile, briefly gazing at each of the 4 girls sitting around him. It was just a lot to take in at once, and I was seriously caught off guard. We did kind of just dump our feelings onto you, Kyoka said as she began to fidget in place, her face flushing red. After averting her gaze, Kyoka began to nervously twiddle her thumbs. So, Izuku, what's your response? Were you girls really serious about this whole sharing thing? Izuku asked in an awkward tone, gazing at each of the girls sitting around him. Ochako, Kyoka, Mina, and Momo all shared a brief glance before they all looked back at Izuku and nodded. Seeing that all 4 girls were serious, Izuku took a deep breath and exhaled. Okay, since you all want to do this, we can give it a try. Each of the girls' eyes instantly lit up in excitement, and Izuku couldn't stop a smile from spreading across his face. To be honest, each of you girls is special to me, and I have feelings for all of you. I was actually worried about having to choose one of you and messing up our friendship. It would have probably caused some friction, but we would have gotten over it. Mina said with a toothy grin as she rested her hands on her knees and leaned forward. We've all been friends for years. There's no way we'd let something like that ruin our bond. I must concur with Mina. Our friendship is strong enough to survive any hardships, Momo said, clasping a hand over her heart, a faint blush spreading across her face. This harem will only work if we all understand each other and are willing to work together to overcome any hardships we'll face. So, how will all this work? Do we just keep acting like normal? But I go on dates with you girls now? Izuku asked in a somewhat apprehensive tone as he wrung his hands together, his entire body practically buzzing with nervous excitement. I want to make this work, so I'll do whatever makes you all the happiest. Heh, we knew you'd say something like, "You're too sweet, Izuku," and I think that will work for all of us. It's not like we need to radically change how we act around each other, Kyoka said with a small smile, before giving Ochako a teasing look. Although, when the 4 of us discussed this whole sharing thing yesterday, there was one condition to our little arrangement. Ochako insisted that she gets to go on the first date with you. Well, of course, Ochako exclaimed as she puffed her cheeks out and pouted, her face flushing a bit in embarrassment. Repeatedly pushing her fingertips together, Ochako averted her gaze. It's just I've known Deku the longest, and we've been friends forever. He's even saved my life twice already. With every word, Ochako's face began to burn a darker shade of red, and she began to fidget more in embarrassment. The other girls and Izuku couldn't help but chuckle as Ochako soon began to float into the air. We're always together, and I just... As Ochako began to twirl in the air, she hid her face in her hands. I love you so much, Deku. I feel the same way, Ochako. I couldn't imagine my life without you, without any of you girls, Izuku said with a smile, gazing up as Ochako floated higher into the air. But you may want to come down, you're getting pretty high. Uncovering her face, Ochako gasped in surprise when she saw that she was almost a dozen feet above the roof. Pressing her fingertips together, Ochako released her quirk and fell back toward the ground. However, she wasn't surprised when she felt herself land in a strong pair of arms. Looking up, Ochako's heart skipped a beat when she saw Izuku smiling warmly at her. Landing back on the roof, Izuku gently set Ochako down and locked eyes with her. We can go on a date tomorrow after school, just you and I, Izuku said as he tenderly cupped Ochako's cheek, feeling his heart begin to race in excitement. A massive smile spread across Ochako's face as she lunged forward and hugged Izuku tightly. As Izuku embraced Ochako, he looked past her at the 3 other girls, each of them smiling at him. After Ochako, I'll go on dates with you girls as well. I'll do my best to make them each special. We know you will, Izuku. You always give your all, no matter what you're doing, Momo said, before standing back up and dusting herself off. Now, I think we all should be heading home. It's getting rather late. Shit, you're right, Kyoka exclaimed in a panic as she whipped out her phone and checked what time it was. Seeing how late it had gotten, Kyoka's eyes shot open in shock. Kyoka jumped to her feet and bolted toward the roof's entrance. I promised my parents that I'd help them move some stuff around the house. I'll see you all in class tomorrow. I should head home too, Mina said with a sly smirk, clutching the high school XDX manga against her chest. I have some reading to catch up on, heh heh. At least pretend you're going to do your schoolwork. Momo said as he released a light sigh and pinched the bridge of her nose. Letting out a devious chuckle, Mina darted toward the door before Momo could scold her anymore. Once Mina was gone, a small smile spread across Momo's face as she slowly shook her head. I'll be heading home as well. My parents are probably starting to get worried, and you know how overprotective my father has been after the kidnapping incident a few years ago. Momo's right, I need to get home, Ochako said, starting to nervously fidget once again. Glancing at Izuku out of the corner of her eye, Ochako looked like she was about to say something, but she couldn't seem to find the words. With her face burning bright red in embarrassment, Ochako sprinted toward the door. I'll see you tomorrow, Deku. I'm really looking forward to our date. Me too. Izuku was cut off when the door to the roof slammed shut, Ochako nowhere in sight. Awkwardly chuckling to himself, Izuku rubbed the back of his head. As Izuku stood on the rooftop, everything that had just happened with the four girls hit him all at once. He had been so swept up in the excitement and flurry of emotions that he didn't really have time to truly process what was happening. Leaning against the roof's fence, Izuku clutched a hand over his thundering heart. His entire upper body flushed bright red and he began to pant slightly. Did that really just happen? Did all four of them really just? How the hell am I going to make this work? All four of them are special to me and I love each of them. But this is so crazy. I need some advice. But who should I talk to? 2 hours later, the Midoriya's apartment. Oh my god, this is going to be the most awkward experience of my life, but I really don't have any other options. Izuku muttered underneath his breath as he stood outside of his mother's bedroom. Taking a deep breath to calm his nerves, Izuku reached out and knocked on the door. Mom, can I talk to you about something? Sure thing, sweetie, Inko's somewhat muffled voice called out from within the room. Come on in. After a moment's hesitation, Izuku opened the door and stepped into his mother's bedroom. He quickly spotted her lying in bed, with a book resting on her lap. What's up, Izuku? You sounded a little nervous. You remember the other day at breakfast, when we were talking about my feelings for Ochako and the other girls. Izuku explained as his face slowly began to heat up in embarrassment, causing Inko to quirk an eyebrow. Well, something happened today, and I was hoping you could give me some advice. Oh, did one of the girls finally confess? Inko asked with a smirk, moving to sit on the edge of the bed and patting the open spot next to her. Come on, tell me all about it. Technically, one of them didn't confess, Izuku replied as he sat down next to his mother, nervously wringing his hands and staring down at his lap. Feeling his heart start to pound in his chest, Izuku looked up at his mother. Actually, all four of them confessed to me at the same time. Apparently, Ochako, Kyoka, Mina, and Momo are all in love with me. Oh my, I wasn't expecting that, Inko said in a surprised tone, her eyes widening slightly. So, how did it go? Did you end up picking one of them to start dating? Again, not one of them, Izuku explained, which caused Inko to quirk an eyebrow in intrigue. After pausing for a few moments, Izuku mustered up the courage to tell his mother what had happened between himself and the four girls. You see, Mom, Mina has been reading this manga, and she came up with a crazy idea where she, Ochako, Kyoka, and Momo all date me at the same time, and they agreed to give it a shot. Okay, Izuku, this is a little odd, but I think I understand the situation, Inko said, nodding her head and shifting on the bed, moving a bit closer to her son. Seeing that Izuku appeared to be quite uncomfortable, Inko smiled warmly and lovingly rubbed his back in an attempt to soothe him. I know that you're probably feeling really awkward right now, sweetie, especially talking about something like this with your mother. If you want, we can pick this conversation up later. No, I made up my mind to do this now because I need your advice, Mom, Izuku said as he balled his fists and locked eyes with his mother. What should I do? Mom, I'm so confused right now. That's pretty understandable in your situation, sweetie, Inko said with a chuckle, gently patting Izuku's back. Seeing an annoyed look in her son's eyes, Inko decided to avoid teasing him. Well, Izuku, I can't say that I have any experience dealing with a harem or sharing someone romantically. Your father is the only man I've ever been with. But before I give you any advice, I've just got one question. Do you love these girls? Of course I do, Izuku exclaimed without any hesitation, which caught Inko slightly off guard. Ochako, Kyoka, Mina, Momo, they're all amazing in their own ways. We've all known each other for years, and I couldn't imagine my life without them in it. I want nothing more than to make them all happy. That's the entire reason I even considered giving this whole sharing thing a chance, because just the thought of any of them being heartbroken makes me feel awful. Noticing that he was starting to get worked up, Izuku paused for a moment and took a deep breath to calm himself. Sorry about that, I'm just so scared and excited right now. My mind has been racing for a while. I really don't want to mess this up and disappoint everyone. Well, I think I've heard everything I need to, Inko said with a smile as she gently patted Izuku's knee. If you want my advice, Izuku, if you really do love these girls and you truly believe that you can make them all happy, then you should give this sharing arrangement a chance. But you have to make sure that you love those girls equally. Give them each the love and affection they deserve. If you start playing favorites, then it'll make the others jealous and the whole relationship will start to collapse. Eagerly nodding his head, Izuku intently listened to every word his mother said. I won't lie to you and say everything will work out. There will undoubtedly be hardships and a lot of people will likely reject you being in a relationship like this. And your relationship with those girls will likely get stressed quite a bit. But if you stay strong and show the world how much you love those girls, I'm sure you'll pull through. Thanks, Mom. I'm starting to feel a bit better now, Izuku said, giving his mother a brief hug before hopping off the bed. I've still got some things to think about, but I'm gonna get ready for bed. I do have a big day tomorrow. I'm going on a date with Ochako after school. Oh, I'm so excited for you, Izuku, Inko gushed as she watched her son dash out of her bedroom. Once she heard the door to Izuku's room open and close, Inko smiled warmly and clutched a hand over her heart. My little Izuku is really growing up. 5 minutes later, Izuku's bedroom. I need to take my mind off this whole sharing thing for a bit. Mom's advice did help me, but I'm driving myself crazy overthinking every little possibility, Izuku thought, pacing back and forth in the center of his room. Glancing over at his backpack, Izuku released a light sigh. I finished all my homework, so that's a no-go. Maybe I should go over today's combat training. It was then that Izuku remembered the advice Rumi had given him. I should consider incorporating kicks into my fighting style. Rumi does have a point. I do rely too much on punches and throws. Taking a deep breath, Izuku activated One for All, full cowling, causing green electricity to spark all around his body. Limiting himself to only about 5% power, trying to prevent himself from destroying his entire bedroom, Izuku tried to remember the way Rumi performed her kicks. Closing his eyes, Izuku used his almost supernatural ability to analyze and dissect people's quirks. He then began to recount his fight against Rumi. Every movement she made flashed through his mind, almost as if she were right in front of him. Izuku could vividly visualize the way the muscles in Rumi's legs flexed as she performed her kicks, the power behind them absolutely extraordinary. Izuku's eyes suddenly snapped open and he unleashed a lightning-fast roundhouse kick. The force behind Izuku's kick sent out a small shockwave, causing some of the figures around his room to start shaking. Once Izuku's foot touched the floor again, he felt an odd sensation wash over him. Having focused so much on punching, using kicks felt completely foreign to Izuku. He could feel how stiff his movements felt, looking completely amateurish in comparison to Rumi. Winding up for another roundhouse kick, Izuku huffed in frustration when the motions still felt completely alien. Maybe focusing so much on punches really was a bad idea. I think I'm starting to understand what Gran Torino said when I trained with him. Trying to mimic everything All Might does could be holding me back. I need to diversify my fighting style. Izuku thought as he stared down at his clenched fists. Okay, let's go over Rumi's movements again. Closing his eyes again, Izuku began to envision his fight against Rumi once again. He could perfectly picture every motion and twitch of Rumi's muscular legs as she executed her devastating kicks. Despite wanting to take his mind off perverted things, Izuku could feel his face heating up as his thoughts began to linger on Rumi's perfectly toned legs. His heart began to beat faster as he pictured the rabbit hero's athletic torso and large bosoms that rivaled Momo and Ochako's. Speaking of Ochako, it didn't take long for Izuku's mind to envision her. Izuku could perfectly picture Ochako in her hero costume, the outfit tightly hugging her body and highlighting her excellent curves. After being confessed to by 4 girls, they were the main thing on Izuku's mind. Abandoning all hope of focusing on something else, Izuku began to fantasize himself being intimate with each of the girls. He felt his breath hitch as he visualized the 4 girls lovingly pressing themselves against him. Their hands caressed his body and their lips gently pressed against his skin. It didn't take long for Izuku to picture Ochako crawling up his body, her massive bosoms dragging across his chest. Cupping Izuku's face, Ochako stared at him with half-lidded, lust-filled eyes. Izuku groaned as he imagined Ochako leaning forward and capturing his lips in a passionate kiss. He could almost feel her tongue slip into his mouth and begin to twirl with his own. However, as Izuku fantasized about kissing Ochako, their saliva still being swapped, a sudden and horrible realization struck him. Wait! Izuku thought as his eyes shot open and he dashed toward his bed. Quickly grabbing his cell phone, Izuku frantically dialed All Might's number. As the phone began to ring, Izuku anxiously started to tap his foot. Come on, pick up, pick up. Young Midoriya, this is unexpected. You haven't called me in quite a while. Izuku immediately perked up when he heard All Might's voice on the other end of the line. So, what's up? I'm assuming you called me this late at night for a reason. Yes, I'm sorry to bother you, All Might, Izuku said in a somewhat embarrassed tone, feeling his face slowly flush red. But I just had a really important question I wanted to ask you. It's about One for All. Oh, well, now this is sudden. Ask away then, young Midoriya. If I can, I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Well, you see, Ochako and I. Izuku began to stumble over his words as he was filled with a rush of embarrassment, his entire feeling like it was burning up. We're kinda going on a date tomorrow. Oh, did I hear that right? So, you and little Ochako finally decided to start dating. I was wondering when that was going to happen. Well, congratulations, young Midoriya. You two will make a great couple. Thanks, I'll tell you more about it another time, Izuku said, tightly gripping his phone as he rubbed the back of his head. But I was wondering, on my date tomorrow, if things go well, what happens if... Izuku's embarrassment was reaching critical levels. His face was currently glowing red and he had to fight the urge to hang up on All Might. But after forcing that urge down, Izuku took a deep breath to calm himself. What will happen if I kiss Ochako? Will I accidentally transfer One for All to her? You said that it's transferred via the previous user's DNA. So, what should I do? Hello All Might, Izuku asked after several moments of silence, which really started to worry him. Are you still? Ah. Izuku had to quickly move the phone away from his ear as he was nearly deafened by All Might's boisterous laughter. Young Midoriya, you are too funny. I haven't laughed this hard in a while. Ah. I'm being serious here, All Might, Izuku exclaimed as a fresh wave of embarrassment washed over him, sitting on the edge of his bed. I just thought about this and I'm really worried. I'm sorry, young Midoriya, I shouldn't be laughing. But if you were in my position, you'd find it quite funny as well. Hearing All Might barely holding back his laughter, Izuku groaned in embarrassment. To answer your question, no, you don't have to worry about accidentally transferring One for All. It can only be transferred if the current host freely chooses to give it away. Oh, that's a weight off my shoulders, Izuku said, breathing out a sigh of relief. Thanks all might, I was really nervous for a minute. Don't worry, young Midoriya, you can kiss little Ochako as much as you want, haha. Ugh, I'm hanging up now, Izuku grumbled as he released a heavy sigh, All Might's boisterous laughter still ringing in his ear. I'll see you in class tomorrow. I expect to hear all about your relationship with. We are not having that conversation right now, Izuku said, quickly hanging up and dropping the phone onto his bed. Falling backward, Izuku spread his arms out and stared up at the ceiling. Talking to Mom about all the girls confessing to me was bad enough. I can't go through that again, especially with All Might. I'll tell him another time, when I won't die of embarrassment. The next morning, UA, University. Excuse me, young man. Izuku nearly jumped out of his skin when what appeared to be a crowd of reporters dashed up to him and shoved several microphones into his face. What's it like to learn from All Might? Please, don't spare any details. Huh? Izuku exclaimed in surprise as he stepped away from the over-eager reporters. Well, you see, I can't really, I have to. He's not answering questions right, we need to get to class, Kyoka said, suddenly appearing behind Izuku and pushing him toward the school's front gate. Seeing that Izuku was a no-go, the reporters quickly switched gears and aimed their microphones at Kyoka. But before the reporters could even ask their questions, Kyoka held up her hand and kept walking. I don't answer questions either, buzz off. Thanks, Kyoka, Izuku said as he breathed a sigh of relief, sparing a glance back at the frustrated reporters. You really saved my butt back there. No problem, I hate dealing with nosy reporters, Kyoka grumbled in an annoyed tone, adjusting the straps of her backpack and walking next to Izuku. You know, both my parents are kind of famous in town because of their music. Well, when I was younger, they'd both get hounded by reporters all the time. It was so damn irritating. Yeah, I can see how that would get aggravating, Izuku said with a chuckle as he scratched his cheek, noticing that more and more of his classmates were starting to arrive. Each of the arriving students was ambushed by the aggressive reporters, all of them struggling to give substantial answers or simply ignoring the questions. Ochako, Mina, and Momo eventually joined up with Izuku and Kyoka, the three girls managing to slip by the reporters with relative ease. After exchanging their usual greeting, Izuku began to lead their small group into the school. Come on guys, let's get to class. So Izuku, Mina said with a cheeky smile, nudging the green-haired boy with her elbow. Are you excited about your date with Ochako tonight? Actually I am, Izuku replied with a small smile as he glanced back at Ochako, noticing a faint blush spreading across her face. This response caught Mina off guard. She expected Izuku to freak out and get embarrassed. I was pretty nervous about this whole sharing thing at first, but I got some advice last night, and now I'm feeling a lot better. I'm gonna give this my all. I'm glad you're excited, Izuku, but could you possibly quiet down? Momo asked in a somewhat embarrassed tone, tapping Izuku's shoulder and gesturing toward all the people around them. People are starting to stare. Oh, my bad, Izuku hissed as he hunched his shoulders and shrunk down slightly, using his hand to hide his face. You guys know how I get when I'm excited. You really are dense sometimes, Ochako said with a short huff, before smiling and patting Izuku on the shoulder. But that's one of the things we love about you. I'm looking forward to tonight too. A few minutes later, Shota had shooed away the reporters and the students of Wana gathered in their classroom. Once everyone had taken their seats, Shota let out an exhausted sigh and dropped a stack of papers onto his desk. Rubbing the sleep out of his eyes, Shota stared at his students for several moments, each of them gazing at him in anticipation. All right, first off, good work with yesterday's battle training, Shota announced as he tapped the stack of papers in front of him. I've gone over your grades and evaluations with Yuzujama-sensei. Picking up the first sheet of paper, Shota quickly scanned through it. Bakugo, you seriously need to grow up and reel in your temper. Yesterday, you endangered several people during your battle. Since this was your first offense, we've decided to just let you off with a warning. But if you don't get your act together, you're going to be wasting your potential. Got it, Katsuki grumbled, gritting his teeth in frustration and tightly balling his fists. I'll do my best. And you, Midoriya, Shota said as he turned his attention toward the green-haired boy. You did well during most of the fight, but you ended up with a broken arm, just like during the entrance exam. I know you have decent control over your quirk, but you can't be ending your fights with busted limbs. If that happens against an actual villain, you could be putting yourself in serious danger. I understand, Aizawa-sensei, Izuku said, nodding his head and jotting down a few notes into his notebook. I'll work harder to train my body so that my quirk doesn't damage me. Good, now for the rest of you, I'll be handing out your evaluations at the end of the day. If you want to discuss anything in particular on them, meet with me after class, Shota said as he set the stack of papers back down onto his desk and leaned back in his chair. Since that's out of the way, it's time for us to move on to some homeroom business. I know this may be sudden. The entire class tensed slightly, fearing another surprising lesson from their teacher. You'll be picking a class representative. Almost instantly, the entire class exploded in an uproar, nearly every student enthusiastically raising their hand and vying for Shota's attention. Each of them wanted to become the class representative, or to at least nominate another student they think deserved the job. While in most schools, students tended to avoid positions with any extra responsibilities because of the mundane tasks and extra stress. But in a hero course at a university like UA, it would basically make you the class leader, which is an excellent position to have for heroes in the making. The exciting proposition led to an outburst of shouting and wailing from most of the class. Quiet down everyone, please. However, one authoritative voice cut through all the shouts, quickly silencing all the other students. Everyone in the class turned to see that it was Tenya who had called out, a stern look in his eyes. Leading others is a task of heavy responsibility, but you'll need more than ambition alone. This sacred position demands the trust of its constituents. If this is to be a democracy, then I believe that we must vote for who our class representative will be. Bah! Shut the hell up, will ya? Katsuki barked in an annoyed tone as he leaned back in his seat, kicking his feet up. This ain't Congress. While I don't like Bakugo-chan's aggressiveness, I do agree with him, Ribbit, Suyu said, turning around in her chair to look back at Tenya. Most of us haven't known each other long enough to build up any trust. Shifting slightly in her seat, Suyu glanced toward Izuku. The two of them briefly locked eyes, and Izuku smiled at her. Turning back around, Suyu pressed a finger to her chin. Though there are some people I do trust already. Plus, almost everyone is just going to vote for themselves, Ijiro chimed in as he crossed his arms over his chest. This will be a total waste of time. That's precisely why anyone who manages to secure multiple votes is the person best suited for the job, Tenya exclaimed, slamming his hands onto his desk and bolting up out of his seat. Will you allow us to do this, sensei? Sure, whatever. Shota grumbled as he slipped into his sleeping bag and laid down on the floor. Just make it quick. Soon enough, all of the students' names were written on the front blackboard. One by one, each member of class 1 went up to the chalkboard and voted for the person they wanted to represent the class. After a few minutes, everyone had cast their votes and the results were quite surprising. Most of the students had received a single vote, likely voting for themselves, just as Ijiro had predicted. But there was one student who had more votes than anyone else. How the hell did I get 6 votes? Izuku exclaimed, his eyes widening as he stared at the tallied votes in utter shock. Glancing around the classroom, Izuku saw a familiar group of girls smirking at him. Well, I guess I know where at least 4 votes came from. Oi, what the actual F? Katsuki roared as he shot out of his seat, his entire body trembling slightly. How could so many of you idiots vote for Deku? Well, we definitely weren't going to vote for you, Ochako thought as she rested her head on her palm, scowling at Bakugo's typical outburst. I trust Deku more than anyone else in this class. 0 votes, Tenya said in a disappointed tone, staring down at his desk and balling his fists in frustration. I thought this was going to happen, but that's just the harsh reality of running for such a sacred position. Looks like we're done then. Shota groaned as he stood up and unzipped his sleeping back, stifling a yawn. Walking over, Shota stroked his chin as he examined the blackboard. All right, looks like Midoriya will be class representative and Yaoyorozu will be assisting him since she received the second most votes. A pity, I was hoping to be our class representative, Momo said, releasing a light sigh before she smiled softly at Izuku. But I do look forward to working with you, Izuku. Sure, Izuku said as he nervously wrung his hands together. I was seriously hoping I wouldn't win. The opportunity is nice, but I'm not very confident in my capabilities as a leader. 3 hours later, lunch period. Man, there really is a lot of kids here, Ochako muttered, scanning around the packed dining area before she ate a mouthful of rice. I didn't notice most of them when we first started our classes. UA has several different degrees other than the hero course, Momo explained as she set down a glass of iced tea. There are support and business courses as well. They may not be training to become heroes, but they'll be assisting us in the future in some way. Man, Aizawa-sensei's lecture was so boring, Mina said, setting her tray down and taking a seat next to Ochako. I nearly fell asleep. The material was pretty dry this morning, Kyoka said as she took a bite of her curry, noticing Izuku out of the corner of her eye. The green-haired boy was simply poking at his food with an odd look on his face. What's up with you, Izuku? You've been kinda off all morning. Oh, I'm fine, Izuku said, looking up from his lunch and rubbing the back of his head. I'm just a bit nervous about whether or not I can be the class representative. You worry too much, Izuku-chan. Tsuyu chimed in as she continued to eat her food, seeming to barely be paying attention to the conversation. You'll do fine. I agree with Isui-san. You don't need to worry, Midoriya, Tenya said, taking a brief sip of his juice. Your grit and decisiveness in a pinch makes you quite suited to lead our class. That's why I voted for you. But didn't you want to be class representative too, Tenya? Ochako asked as she set down her bowl of rice. You've got the whole government-type look going for you. Again, ambition and suitability are separate matters, Tenya explained, releasing a light sigh and slowly shaking his head. I humbly made the choice I felt was correct. Humbly? Yeah, no, I never really noticed until now, but the way you talk is kinda like Momo, Mina said, which caused the dark-haired girl to quirk an eyebrow in surprise. Are you a rich kid too? Mina? Momo hissed, her face flushing red in embarrassment as she smacked the pink-skinned girl's shoulder. That was incredibly rude. It's fine, Yaoyorozu-san, she is correct. I try to hide it as much as I can, Tenya said, not seeming to be fazed as he took a bite of his lunch. Yes, I come from a renowned hero family, and I am the second son. Wait, I can't believe I didn't notice until now, Izuku exclaimed as his eyes lit up, a goody smile spreading across his face. If you're the second son, then your older brother is the turbo hero, Ingenium, right? He employs 65 sidekicks at his office in Tokyo. I'm impressed, you're quite informed, Tenya said, chuckling to himself as he adjusted his glasses. Yes, he is my brother. Wow, he's pretty frank about this, Kyoka said as she rested her chin on her fist. Looks like someone is really proud of his brother. My brother leads the people with his unwavering adherence to rules and regulations. A truly beloved hero, Tenya explained with a smile, crossing his arms over his chest. It's my admiration for my brother that inspired me to become a hero. Though I'm willing to admit that I'm not quite ready to lead others yet. You were the superior candidate, Midoriya, so the role of class representative should go to you. Just like I have all might, Tenya has ingenium. Izuku thought as he gazed at Ida, feeling an unspoken connection forming between them. I guess where Izuku was violently pulled from his thoughts when a blaring alarm suddenly echoed out in the dining hall. Instantly, most of the students sprang out of their seats. The alarm? Could it be a villain? Security level 3 has been broken. All students, please evacuate in a safe and orderly fashion. What's security level 3? Mina shouted over the piercing alarm, covering both her ears. What the hell is going on? If I remember correctly from the student handbook, it means that someone has infiltrated one of the buildings. Momo replied as she winced slightly, watching as a stampede of students stormed out of the dining hall. We should get out of here as well. Come on everyone, we need to evacuate, Izuku yelled, trying to lead his group out of the building. But before they could come up with any plan, they were all swept along by a wall of panicking students. Izuku grunted as he was pushed and shoved, slowly being separated away from everyone else. Try to stay together, don't get separated. Oh. Stop shoving, you bastard. I'm gonna fall, don't push me. If you keep pushing me, I'll beat your ass. This is nuts, Kyoka exclaimed as she shoved in the back, stumbling forward into another student. Everyone needs to stop panicking. Such a rapid response to danger, Tenya called out, managing to stay standing after 2 students fell into him. I'd expect nothing less from this great institution. This is a bit too rapid, Momo shouted as she stopped a random student from falling onto the ground and being trampled. Even if everyone is scared, this reaction is ridiculous. Who the hell even infiltrated the school? Mina screamed in frustration, nearly tripping over some bags that had been knocked over. Glancing over at a nearby window, Mina growled when she saw a familiar group roaming the university grounds. It's those damn reporters from this morning. They somehow got into the school. I wish I could help you guys, Suyu said as she used her quirk to crawl across the ceiling, watching the chaos unfold below her. But I'd only be able to carry one of you. Everyone, please calm. Tenya was cut off when he was slammed against the window by a group of students. Whenever Tenya tried to keep moving, he was shoved back against the window. Where are the teachers? Are they dealing with the press? Turning his head, Tenya watched as several of his classmates pushed past him. It seems like no one knows there's no cause for alarm. They're all in a frenzy. With his mind racing, Tenya tried to think of a way to organize the situation. As he watched Ochako pass by, an idea started to form in his head. What would Midoriya or my brother do in this situation? Ochako, Kyoka, help me get. Izuku tried to come up with his own plan, but he was stopped when Tenya suddenly caught up with him. Tenya, do you have an idea? Uraraka-san, make me float, Tenya exclaimed as he held out his hand toward Ochako. Just before Ochako was swept away, she managed to smack Tenya's hand. Floating up into the air, Tenya began to maneuver himself toward the exit. Pulling up his pant legs, Tenya used his quirk to quickly boost himself forward. Unable to safely stop himself, Tenya slammed against the doorway and clung to a pipe. Inhaling deeply, Tenya turned to face the stampeding students. Everyone, everything is fine. It's just reporters. There's nothing to panic about. This is UA. Behave in a way befitting this university. Tenya's bold and booming voice easily pierced through the uproar. In a truly astounding event, the riot came to a sudden stop, with the students now clamoring amongst themselves. With the commotion now dying down, the students began to notice the group of reporters outside. They even spotted Aizawa and President Mike trying to disperse the press. Seeing that there was truly nothing to worry about, all the students began to safely exit the building. That was amazing. Tenya really is incredible. Izuku thought, watching as Tenya continued to guide the students' evacuation. Now, I know that I'm truly not the one who should lead our class. 45 minutes later, 1A's classroom. Well, that sure was an interesting lunch break. Momo joked as she stood at the front of the class, with Izuku beside her. After some half-hearted chuckles from most of the class, Momo smiled and turned to face Izuku. Go ahead, class rep. You have something you wanted to tell us. Yes, what happened earlier was truly a shock. But during that commotion, one thing became clear to me, Izuku said with a grin before gesturing toward Tenya, who looked at him in surprise. I think you'll agree with me when I say that Tenya is the best one suited to be class representative. You all saw the way he guided everyone in that crisis. I humbly. Tenya couldn't help but crack a small smile at Izuku's playful jab. Think that he's the correct choice for the job. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea to me. Ida really showed his stuff back there in the dining hall, Ijiro exclaimed with a smirk as he gave Tenya a thumbs up, the rest of the class nodding in agreement. Not that I've got anything against you, Midoriya. He was totally like a shining beacon pointing to the emergency exit. Denki Kaminari added, leaning back in his seat and looking at Tenya. You were awesome, man. Ugh, can you all just get on with this? Shota exclaimed as he sat up from the floor, still tucked away in his sleeping bag. This is such a waste of time. Thank you, everyone, Tenya said, standing up from his seat and turning to face the entire class. I will gladly accept the job. As the WANA students celebrated the election of their new class representative, a small group of teachers gathered at the entrance to UA University. The gate that had been keeping the reporters out was a destroyed and crumbled mess. Someone, or something, had caused the metal gate to crumble to dust, allowing the reporters into the university. No ordinary reporter could have done this. Someone instigated this whole affair. Did some evildoer manage to slip in, or do they intend to wage some greater war? Whoever they are, Rumi said with a scowl as she punched her fist into her palm. I'll personally kick their ass for endangering my students. Later that night, outside Ochako's apartment. This is gonna go fine. I've hung out with Ochako a million times before. Things totally won't be weird or anything. Izuku awkwardly mumbled to himself, tightly clutching the box of chocolates and flowers he had gotten for Ochako. He knew it was super cliché, but he also knew Ochako would love it. Feeling his heart start to race, Izuku took several deep breaths to calm himself. I do love Ochako and the other girls. I want to. No, I will make this relationship work out. Finally mustering up enough courage, Izuku reached out and rang the doorbell. And it all starts here. Coming, Izuku's heart skipped a beat when he heard Ochako's bubbly voice call out from within the apartment. A few seconds later, the door opened and Izuku was met with Ochako's beaming smile. Hey, Deku, I'm so ready for our date. Oh, and you bought me flowers and chocolate. That's so sweet of you. Yeah, Izuku thought with a dopey smile as he felt his heart start to flutter, a faint blush spreading across his face. Ochako raised her head slightly as Izuku continued to stare at her. Despite his earlier apprehensions, Izuku knew everything would be fine when he felt a warm and comforting sensation wash over him. I'm definitely in love. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through What If Deku Received One for All and Had Harem. I hope you found it as intriguing and thought-provoking as we did. A big shout out to JTZ29 for crafting such a compelling story. Don't forget to check out their profile on FanfictionNet for more amazing works. The link is in the description below. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to What If Deku 2 for more fascinating explorations into the world of fanfiction and fantasy. Your support helps us create more content like this, and we're always excited to hear your thoughts and suggestions in the comments section. See you guys in the next video.